In late 1983, the tragic discovery of a woman's lifeless body was discovered in a ditch alongside a busy Cambridgeshire motorway. She had been violently beaten to death, promoting the immediate launch of a murder investigation. The victim was quickly identified as a successful and popular solicitor from London, a married woman who also lived in the area. However, no motive for this violent crime could be established, and despite a number of promising leads over the years and various theories in this case, the murder of Janice remains one of Cambridge's most baffling mysteries. This is the story of Janice Weston. 36-year-old Janice Weston lived and worked in the London area. She was a successful solicitor, a partner at a firm known as Charles Russell & Company at Lincoln Inn Fields in London, specialising in computer law. Janice had graduated with a first-class honours degree in law from Manchester University and became a solicitor in 1971. She worked in London for several years and became one of the first women to achieve a partnership in the field of commercial law, an area that had traditionally been a closed field to women until that point. Janice specialised in intellectual property law and was considered a leading authority on the subject. She was also heavily involved in the relatively new but growing field of computer law. She was a member of the Parliamentary Information Technology Committee. She was also Vice Chairman of the Computer and Electronic Devices Committee at the International Bar Association and was due to present a paper at its October meeting in Toronto, Canada. Janice practiced law under her maiden name of Janice Wright. Janice was considered a brilliant lawyer by her colleagues, and aside from her generous salary, was also quite well off due to a large inheritance left by an elderly associate named Heinz Isner, who she had met when he had become a client at the firm. Heinz had carried a torch for Janice somewhat, despite being decades older than her and despite Janice politely declining his advances. But when he died, he gave her a small fortune in cash, art and antiques. Janice lived in West London with her new husband. They'd only been married for 15 months, and she was married to a man named Tony Weston, a property developer who she had met through work. Together they had purchased a country house in Clopton near Northampton. The idea was to convert it into luxury apartments, selling them off and making a fortune. On September the 10th, 1983, it was a Saturday, and Janice was reportedly seen as she visited Kensington Tyre Motors in West London. She had visited to retrieve the spare wheel to her Alfa Romeo car, and by now it was 11:20 a.m. She was also seen shopping near her home in Hollands Park at around midday. That afternoon, she had headed to the office to finish a case for a client. She had spoken to a friend on the phone telling her that she would be in London all weekend as she tried to get the work completed for him. So she was going to be in the office that afternoon. The exact time that she arrived is unknown. Janice was now at the peak of her professional career. She was successful, popular, and had a busy social life. She had gained a reputation as an international expert, and she was apparently writing a book on a specialist interest of hers, data protection. That afternoon, one of Janice's co-workers had noticed that Janice had been stood frequently looking out of the front window, almost as if perhaps she was waiting for someone. A phone call came in at 4:45 p.m. It was a call for one of her colleagues, but he had left, so Janice took a note for him. This corroborated her presence at the workplace still at 4:45 p.m. After work, it is thought that Janice left the office, driving to her home in her Alfa Romeo car and back to the basement flat in Addington Avenue. After returning home, she changed her clothes into jeans and a sweater and prepared a meal. Her husband Tony was away in Paris all weekend, showing a chateau to a pair of prospective buyers, so it's believed that Janice was at the flat alone all weekend. She had told her colleagues earlier that she was planning on staying in London all weekend, although at some point before she even finished her meal or glass of wine, she apparently needed to leave the flat, and she did so abandoning half of her dinner and a partially drunk glass of wine. It's unknown if she left alone, whether she was forced out of the flat, or what the reason was why she evidently needed to leave in such a hurry, leave the food behind. Even more oddly was that she took an overnight bag with her, as well as a bottle of wine and half a loaf of bread. Also, she took a manuscript to the book she was working on and a small purse containing £37 in cash. However, she left a larger handbag which had her credit cards, her checkbooks and everything behind at home. She then headed out in her silver Alfa Romeo. Now, it's thought that she was not meeting her husband as he was away in Paris all weekend. Could she have arranged to meet a friend, taking a bottle of wine with her, or even a lover that her husband was not aware of? Speculatively, she may have been heading to the Copton Hall in North Hampshire that she had bought with her husband, the country house that they were in the process of refurbishing. Now, the property at the time was unfinished and contained no furniture or amenities other than a couple of sleeping bags, although Janice and Tony had been known to visit the place often and were well liked by the locals in the area. The following day, on the 11th of September 1993, a cyclist who was riding his bike along a road near to the A1 in Cambridgeshire had stopped to meet his wife halfway through his cycle. She was meeting up with him to give him lunch and drinks, and she waited in a lay-by near the A1 for him to arrive. When he pulled up, he got off his bike, walked a few meters ahead, and then saw the legs belonging to a young female. It was the body of a lady, and it looked like she was dead. The pair quickly went off to contact the police, who arrived and quickly cordoned off the area. The lady had been bludgeoned to death. The body had been found close to the Brampton Hut roundabout near Huntingdon. Post-mortem tests found that she had died as a result of blunt blows to the head, causing head injuries and skull fractures, unsurvivable injuries, thought to have been bludgeoned with something such as a car jack. It was also discovered that the body belonged to that of Janice Weston. A detective said at the time that they wondered if the killer had possibly lost his temper with Janice and gone berserk. When she was found, she was fully clothed. Janice's husband said that she used to pick up hitchhikers, but thought at that time that she had stopped doing so. One theory was considered that she had picked up a hitchhiker on her way north to her country home. Police went to her flat to find out more about her final moments. As police entered the flat, they noted the half-eaten meal still waiting on the table. The timeline of Mrs. Weston's final moments had the last sighting of her alive at the office near Lincoln's Inn Fields in Holborn on September the 10th, 1983. After piecing together information, police believed that Janice had made it home from work that evening before preparing a meal and leaving halfway through it. Then it is believed that she may have driven or been driven in the direction of her country home in Copton, where she owned the country house, leading police to believe that she had left in a hurry. A few days later, Mrs. Weston's silver Alfa Romeo car was discovered in Redhill Street. Her driver's license and purse were still inside the car. Despite telling friends that she intended to stay in London all weekend, it looks like she may have left her flat that evening and heading north to the country house in Clopton, Northamptonshire, travelling along the A1. That night there was heavy traffic and police believed that she did not reach the Huntingdon stretch of the A1 before 9 p.m. Police believe that Mrs. Weston pulled into a lay-by close to the Brampton Hut roundabout to change a tyre, as forensic officers found oil on her fingers. The spare wheel Mrs. Weston had brought that morning had been removed from the car's boot and put onto the car. The original tyre that was changed was never found by police, and it's at that point that police believe Mrs. Weston was attacked with her own car jack. The jack was found in a nearby field with traces of hair and blood on it. The instrument they believed was used in the attack. How the car came to be near Regent's Park remains a key point in this mystery. It had been there untouched for long enough that the wardens had put a ticket on the windscreen. By the time police arrived, no fingerprints could be found inside the car, although there was an opened bottle of wine. Relatives were adamant that Mrs. Weston never drank when she drove. The replaced tyre could not be found despite searches near the lay-by and Redhill Street. One witness said a scruffy-looking man had been seen getting out of the Alfa Romeo, although this figure remains unidentified. Tony was held and questioned in December of 1983. After 55 hours of public questioning, his lawyers went to the High Court, where they obtained an order for his release. He was eventually cleared of any wrongdoing, although a file was sent to the Director of Public Prosecution, who decided there was insufficient evidence to raise charges. A hotel clerk working in the Paris hotel confirmed that Tony Weston was at the hotel the very night that Janice was murdered. The strange fact, however, was that he was not interviewed by Cambridgeshire police until some 10 days after her body was found. The hotel clerk at the hotel in Paris specifically recorded Tony picking up his room key because of an altercation at reception. It appears that the previous day, September the 9th, 1983, Tony Weston had shown an English couple around a chateau. Cambridgeshire police ultimately attended the French capital, but they were only able to confirm that Tony paid for 3 nights accommodation at the hotel from Friday to Sunday, and that he used his credit card in Paris at 2:15 p.m. on Saturday and another transaction on the Sunday evening. It would appear that Tony Weston left Paris on Monday, September the 12th, and again visited the chateau on Tuesday the 13th of September. The police found him there, requested his urgent return to the United Kingdom. By that time, they had identified the body as belonging to Janice. Tony Weston was questioned when he returned from Paris for more than 50 hours by police, later raising a complaint about the manner in which the interrogation took place, which included showing him harrowing photos of his wife and the crime scene. But he was later cleared of any involvement. He was placed on a business trip in France, where witnesses say he was seen in Paris during the critical days. Mrs. Weston, a black belt in judo, had not seemingly been robbed and was still wearing her gold watch, her gold wedding ring, when she was found by the cyclist. Theories have been suggested and dismissed, including one from a serving prisoner who said she had been killed in a botched kidnap. The story, said not to be credible by police after the investigation, said that one of the kidnappers was himself killed and dumped in a nearby lake. Mrs. Weston's murder had also been raised in relation to an investigation into whether a serial killer, Peter Tobin, had killed more women, although without any concrete link. A police statement said that officers from Bedfordshire, Cambridge and Hertfordshire Major Incident Team were conducting a review of the murder, exploring new forensic opportunities and appealing for anyone with information to come forward. The case made headline news across the national newspapers and TV channels, and police said at the time that they were aiming to quickly arrest a suspect, but nobody had ever been charged in her murder, and the case, despite many different theories over the years, continued to baffle detectives. More than 5,000 statements were taken in relation to the inquiry, and on the 35th anniversary of Janice's death, Cambridgeshire police said that it had carried out extensive investigations at the time and appealed for new information. However, another 5 years on and no suspects were identified. Kelly Knibbs, leading the investigation for Cambridgeshire police, said, "It is never too late to come forward with information, and no unsolved murder case is ever closed. However, it is over 40 years now since Janice Weston was murdered, and realistically, time is running out to bring her killer to justice. Advances in forensic techniques mean that exhibits from the case are still being re-examined in the hopes that they will provide new leads in this case." She urged that anyone with information contacted officers, adding a lot can change in 40 years, and it may be that people who were either afraid or unwilling to come forward at the time now feel that they can do so. In addition to any new information, they're also keen to speak to people who came forward during the original investigation, or those who spoke to Crime Watch but not directly to police, to still call in with information. It's over 40 years since Janice Weston was murdered, and it doesn't seem like police are any closer to finding out who was responsible for her death. What do you think about this case? Let me know in the comment section below, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye for now.